Good evening. I will call to order the school board business meeting for Monday, February 25th. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Aldrich.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
McKeon.
Here.
Peterson. Here. Tomzik.
Here.
Tucker. Here. And Bowerman.
Yes, ma'am. Please join me for Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have an excellent good news item tonight, and I see our guest is in row 2. Actually, Katie, why don't you come on up? Come on up, have a seat. We'll probably end up taking a picture, but maybe even ask you to speak a few words. Who knows? But let me read something first. So we're going to offer congratulations to Tanya Drexler Gutierrez, I hope I said that right,
You did.
for being named a candidate for the 2019 Minnesota Teacher of the Year program. Tanya is an English language teacher at Shakopee High School, and she's worked for our district since 2006.
Yes.
The 2019 Teacher of the Year will be announced on May 5th of 2019, so you have a few months you got to wait and wonder, in St. Paul. The Minnesota Teacher of the Year program is led by Education Minnesota and aims to recognize and celebrate excellence in teaching in Minnesota. So we are thrilled that you are not only nominated, because there's only so many, but you're also another representative of our district, so thank you for representing our district. And I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are on this.
Well, you have to be nominated, and I was nominated by a dear colleague of mine, and so that was just knowing how hard my colleagues work, and that someone else thought I was worthy of this honor was quite an honor in itself. So
That's great.
I don't know if it'll go any further, but it was an honor to be nominated, if that's as cliche as it gets. But
Well, it's clearly recognition of your time teaching, your efforts, your quality, and I mean, that's wonderful, because I imagine they get, I don't know how many nominations they get every year, but they have to winnow it down, so you've obviously made the cut in some fashion, so congratulations. Yes.
As someone who worked with Tanya for a long time, I have to say she's an excellent teacher, and beyond that, she does everything. She's involved with committees, she's working with students after school, before school. I'm very happy for you.
And she is also an Augustana University alum, along with me, so that was awesome to see that.
Wow, you're getting all kinds of other praise.
Yes.
Nice. Well, we have a certificate to recognize you regardless of what happens, so we'll do that, and maybe catch a quick photo.
Thank you.
Oh.
Perfect. Cool.
Let's give her a hand. We hope to bring you back to recognize you for winning.
No pressure.
All right, we'll move along to item number 4, consideration of agenda as presented. Do we have any changes, Mike or Sarah?
No.
Pretty much as it is, okay. I'm looking for a motion to accept the agenda as presented. Joe? Matt, second. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to consent. Let's get it on the table. Look for a motion to accept consent.
Second.
Okay. Paul, Matt. Any questions or issues, what have you, discussion on consent? There are a number of items there, but again, pretty typical items that we handle in this fashion, so if you have any questions, you can certainly let us know. But hearing none, I will move to approve consent as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right, great. Stick with the same order. Move anything around? Okay. So we're going to go to 6.1 and ask Dave, I think he's going to come up. Oh, not come up, Dave's there. And talk about the February enrollment update, kind of our standard February update.
So this is something that you've seen in the past, and you have it broken down by school on the left, and you have it summarized on the right. And the bottom line, I'm going to jump to that, and then you can talk about it in details if you want. you'll see, oh, go up a little bit. So,
All right.
yeah, right there, that's good.
Okay.
That the K-5 total, we're down at the elementary, down a little bit at the middle, up at the high school, and so we're net down about 60 students. You'll see exactly 63 on there.
From projected.
From projected, yep. And you can see from October to where we're at right now, really not wildly different. So once we're at October, you probably have a pretty good idea of where we're going to wind up.
Any questions for Dave?
Is there any rationale behind why K to 4 is, what I would say, significantly off compared to the other numbers?
I don't, the only number that, I don't understand the other non-kindergarten grade levels. The kindergarten is the hardest number for us to project. So that one I can understand, but the other ones I don't understand why those are the way they are. I don't know, Mike or Jeff, and speculation.
It's just a function of projections, and it's a little off. We always see fluctuation.
You do, and that's not a significant.
No.
Just seems like, it's consecutive grades, that's why it's kind of stuck out to me that.
Well, we used to think later on, I mean, how many years now are we out from the depression low? When the birth went down.
2008?
Yeah,
8 to 10,
so
yeah.
I don't know exactly where that would be. That used to be part of it. I don't think that explains probably all of it. I think it's more of a projection, that value. Yes.
Yeah, and do we have any sense of SACS enrollment? I don't think they've seen a spike that would say more kids are going private or living whole.
No, I'm not aware of that either. And so if there was something consistently in there, it does seem like when you look at fifth grade, which is the one kind of that looks a little different than the other elementary grades, that we don't see it there. No, I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know.
So when you make your projections, so the blue column, is that based on where the numbers ended the previous year, school year? Or?
Yes, yeah.
With the exception of kindergarten.
Right.
Correct. Sarah, this is fairly consistent in terms of kind of peaks and valleys with what we've seen historically. You've been in this for 20 years.
And one of the things that took me more than a few cycles to get used to is the in-year fluctuation. If you look at the 10-1 to 2-1, look at 11, is it 10th grade or 11th grade, where it's like 11 kids just in the span of 6 months or 4 months. It's either, plus or minus, but it's interesting to see that many kids who leave school mid-year.
And it's probably more than that because there's going to be some ins and outs.
Yeah, this is just the net.
So if you want, I can try to dig in and see exactly, get a better answer than I don't know for next time. I still might not know, but I can actually try to do a little research and figure out how that can happen like that.
And we still have on the left-hand column, Eagle Creek had a drop, which we're pretty happy about, right? Because they're well over capacity from last year to this year.
And I think the capacity for Eagle Creek is right around 800, so they're actually running a little
Okay.
under their capacity right now.
And Jackson got a little relief, but not as dramatic.
Correct. If you look, you'll see their current fifth grade class is, I think, their largest, at 158. So that one will roll out, and unless we get a really large kindergarten class, they'll get a little relief, kind of the same way Eagle Creek did this year as well,
Yeah.
rolling off a large fifth grade and bringing in a smaller kindergarten.
And if I remember correctly, last year when you spent a lot of time studying this, Jackson's the bigger concern because that's where a lot of the new development is still being built. There's still shovels in the ground in that part of town.
I don't think so much. I think the development that people were most worried about is actually in the Sweeney,
Okay.
that one right across Marystown.
Yep.
Is in the Sweeney attendance area.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, because we're trying to balance that.
Is there a cutoff date for state aid? So seeing how numbers fluctuate from beginning of school year to like February 1, is there a date that we get our aid based on X number of students?
Well, I think some of the categoricals are 10-1, but the rest is based on your actual attendance.
Yeah,
and then weighted.
it's actual. So, like for the school year just completed, the 17-18 school year, we really didn't finalize those student numbers till December with the department head. So it's kind of, it can change every day. So it would be great if there was a time where you said November 15, because then I can really sit here and tell you what our revenue is going to look like. So, but it is what it is. So from day to day, if 10 kids move in tomorrow, we'll get to count part of their attendance. So,
It's permanent.
yeah, yeah, yep.
The school board has just history of reporting on 10-1 and February 1st, so that you're comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, to Jeff's point.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. I neglected to mention, I'm always interested about the time allotments, but it wasn't a 5, and it wasn't a 10. You had 8 minutes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that happened.
I'm not sure either,
But I think we hit it. I think we might have gained a couple minutes.
Might have even gained a little time.
Yeah.
It's a special new agenda system.
Is that what it is? The precision is great.
You know how they tell the sports price tickets, they fluctuate,
Yeah.
what the opponent is, it's kind of like that.
He's more popular than a 5-minute topic and less popular than a 10-minute topic.
Exactly.
We gotta get up to date polling.
Yeah.
We'll shoot for 7 next year.
Okay. Well, I would call Jeff up, but Jeff's already up. So we'll move on to item 6.2, and he's going to be up here for a couple of these. And for the benefit of the board, you guys know this, but maybe for those watching, this is a pickup largely of, maybe not this first item, but certainly the ones that follow. And they're all connected with where we had the in-depth discussion 2 weeks ago. Take it away, Jeff.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, this is just a report we put together on a monthly basis. We really want to keep the board apprised of how we're tracking throughout the current fiscal year. This looks just at, we're just looking at our kind of major fund, our governmental general fund. You can look at that, the column in green. So that is the current year revenue, revenue categories, the 99,226,000, and then expenditures of 97. So those numbers include the revisions we're going to ask you to approve later tonight. So those numbers are in there. Then what we do is show either revenue received or expenditures to date, and then we compare that with prior years. So I'll jump down to the one where I spent all my time tracking expenditures, and there's 2 categories there: salaries and wages, and the employee benefits. Typically 80% of total spend within the general fund. So you can see that as of January 31, we're tracking at 44.74% on salary. So that's a good place to be at this time of year. So at the end of January, you can see that's tracking better than the 2 previous years that we're showing. I should jump up to on the revenue side. I just want to point out where you see some pretty significant variances. Look at the federal revenue. I'll just say that's not that we're not going to receive what we budgeted. I'm behind in doing the draws, so I just did some draws from CERT's website at MDE to bring in our federal dollars. So we'll see that number jump up in February. So as soon as we spend dollars, we can go out to the CERT's website and bring those dollars into the district. And then the other, so again, I think after we put our revenue into the system in February, that number will track and look like prior years. And then the other big change there is property taxes. So I think in the past, the way we've done it in this district is just as our receipts were, as we receive dollars from the county typically in November and in May. That's when we're recording the revenue. But the way we're supposed to do it under our UFAR's accounting structure is to recognize 100% of that revenue on July 1. You've certified the levy, so they're actually, as of June 30, they're in the prior year audit as taxes available for subsequent years. So the way this works is that we recognize that the total amount July 1. When we work our way through the audit, there will be some delinquents, some additions, and it will end up somewhere around that number. There won't be a big change from the number you're seeing there. So,
Well,
question.
yeah, don't get into the weeds for me, but Sarah, actually scroll back down.
Oh, sorry.
If we recognize it in July and it's the full boat, so to speak, the full nut, why is there 113,000 remaining? Seems like you recognized the full amount.
Yeah, there'll be payments, because attached to that are some county apportionment payments. That typically is about $90,000, so we would get close there. There's some mobile home delinquent, there's I call them little dollar amounts, it is 113. So I would say we'll get pretty close to that. That's perfect. And then we kind of show revenue over under expenditures, the 1.7. Sarah, if you could scroll down. We show here the projected fund balance, so the non-spendable, unreserved, et cetera. So again, some improvement to fund balance in the current year. And I think that's about it. Questions? Well, I would just say we're tracking. I would say budget to actual looks like we're in good shape. So, and that is another reason for doing this report is, hey, this thing is out of whack here, and we need to alert the board so we don't have anything like that happening.
So assuming this ends as projected, it'd be 2 strong years of
Rebuilding some fund
rebuilding to our
balance.
general
Yeah,
fund.
absolutely.
Especially from last June to the projected for this coming June. That's impressive. That's just from the cuts that were made.
Yeah, all the changes we
Ongoing.
built into the budget. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just roll right into the next 2 items, direction action items. So the budget revisions you're going to ask us to approve and planning
Yeah.
assumptions.
And as you mentioned, we kind of went through this at the work session. I did take the same information, Joe, you were there, to the Citizens
Yes.
Finance Group, just to get their approval. They were good with these changes, so. And again, these were already built into that budget worksheet that you just saw, that comparison. So on the revenue side, $35,000 decrease, expenditure side, $78,000 increase. I think I mentioned at the work session, $100 million budget. These are pretty small changes, but they're important, I think, in that we needed to reflect that enrollment change. I wanted to get the special education categorical aid figured out as best you can at this time of the year, increase that. And then on the expense side, it's just really updating staffing costs for the actual staff that are in place. So overall, not big changes, but these are significant areas within the budget. And then we just lost this. So these were the changes. These are the overview of the revisions we covered in the work session. And the capital fund revisions at 1.4 basically is timing within the capital projects fund. That 1.4 was in the prior year budget. We didn't have the expenditures, at least by audit cutoff time. So the fund balance was a little bit greater. So now we know we're going to spend those dollars in the current year. Then hopefully the 99.2 and the 97.4 is what we have on that on that budget worksheet, I think that was the case. Projected fund equity, 4.5. And I think that's it. So again, we discussed this, I think, at length at the learning session, again with the citizens finance group.
Just to reiterate, we're looking at a change of about 0.1%.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty small. Pretty small.
That's a understatement. You're being humble, but that's good.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I mentioned at the work, I probably, when it's at that level, you probably don't bring it to the board and just say we're good. But I think when it hits some of those the enrollment, it's just a good idea to, hey, you know what, we've got to change there, we've got to change on our staffing.
I would rather have you bring something to the board that doesn't need to be then.
Sure.
I agree with Paul. I think that even if it's just to reiterate how frankly good the budget planning and estimates were, but I think we want to see that every time, regardless.
Yeah. So we'll do that.
Any questions or follow-up from the last meeting when we went into this a little bit more depth for Jeff? Okay, so we need to take action on this to actually approve the revised budget as presented. I'm looking for a motion to do so. Paul? Joe, second. Any additional discussion?
No, just to say good work.
Yeah.
You, your team, everybody, and it's beyond the finance team, right? I know
It's a team.
Other departments, building,
So-
everybody.
Yep, it's a lot of people making this work.
We love the confidence we have in them. That's what's great. All right, all those in favor as moved to approve the budget year revisions for FY19, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Great. All right, Jeff, let's move into the FY20.
Okay, then we move to the next fiscal year, so 1920 budget planning. So as you can see, general fund again, right now projecting a surplus of about $68,000. And we have some kind of key planning assumptions. The basic revenue, we're saying, will increase by 2%. And where that number ends up, so right now we're saying it'll be $6,438 per pupil unit. Wherever that ends up, it's going to represent about 59% of general fund revenue. So that's a significant budget component, planning factor that general education needs. Then we have some other formula-driven. When I say formula-driven, that means they're attached to number of pupil units. So that is general education. So different pieces of the general education aid, like capital, gifted and talented, et cetera. So we're projecting those dollars at $7,007,500. Property tax revenue, I think we mentioned, you've already certified the levy. Will be plus or minus a few dollars off of that total. And then the other categorical revenue, most of that being from the state, and the biggest piece of that is special education. So 13.6. So those are the items driving our planned revenue for next year. And then the expenditure assumptions, it's pretty much heavy talking about staff here because it's about 80% of our expenditures. And so what we rolled forward is board-approved positions from the current year are rolled forward with anticipated negotiated changes, whatever they may be. And then staffing changes. We're already starting to build this in. So I've got another kind of model already I'm working on, and we're taking into account that those enrollment changes. So we still end up with that surplus, $68,000, $70,000, but we're probably going to drive the enrollment down. But then staffing will change based on the targets that we have in place. So just so we're clear, when we say that I'm rolling, that's where we start. I roll staff forward. Okay, now we look at some enrollment changes that may happen, and okay, then we're not going to roll all the staff forward. We're going to make changes, decrease staffing based on these targets.
And Jeff, the targets is, someone told me it's plus or minus something. Is it plus or minus 2 or 3?
I think 3. Right, Dave?
3.
And Jeff, can you go back up a little bit?
Yep.
When you mentioned the staffing, and that's, we'll have a new agreement with our biggest bargaining units, right, effective 7/1, obviously it won't settle by 7/1, but
Right.
they're
Yep.
retroactive this year. Do you have a sense off the top of your head, or maybe Keith knows this, what is our steps and lanes increase looking like? 2%?
Roughly.
Roughly 2%, okay, so that's just the cost of
That's just
teachers moving through the
schedule.
salary
Yeah.
schedule. So our cost is already going to go up by about 2%.
Yep.
Okay. And you're being conservative, well, in theory, being conservative with a 2% revenue number. The governor's asked for 3,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that would be the
I'll-
biggest increase in.
I'll
in
kind of
history.
end with that as well.
Okay.
So, and then, key expenditure bin, some of the non-salaried items. I'll just go down to and see what they are. Remember, we made a change on utilities, we have increased that and carried that forward. And then, on the very last item there, item B, routing efficiencies will provide for a reduction of 4 regular routes. So we fill up our buses and run more efficient routes. We think we can take 4 routes off the system without changing service at all. And that number is figured into the expenditure side already. So, again, this, we talked about this at the learning session. Joe, we talked to the citizens group about these planning assumptions as well. They like to see some fund balance build back, but I think knowing that we have some conservative items built in here, Joe, you can kind of tell me what you heard at that meeting too. But I think we're okay, and probably be nice to build back 250,300. But what does that take to do that? So I think they felt comfortable.
But they were very encouraged by the conservative numbers on both revenue and expenditures, hopefully guessing low on revenue, high on expenditures. Since we're showing a positive number at the end of the year, if we're being conservative on both ends, the projected surplus hopefully will be larger than the $68,000. It all just kind of depends on where everything hits.
And I will finish by saying we have, so we're building in 2%. We've got the governor's budget recommendation, calls for 3. So we'll see where things end up. So we're leaving it at the 2. We've got a long way to go, I think, in the session. So we'll see how things end up. But again, we'll be tracking the session. See if
A lot of things can change in 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, and I believe that the other part of the funding is the special ed holding the cross-subsidy steady.
Right.
Do we have a sense
Yeah.
of how much of that money?
The only, I kind of played with the way they do. I can't do that calculation.
Right.
I can take a shot at it. So I think it might have been, I used what they're currently prorating the district. So it was maybe 100, and depends what day I go out to the state and look at their model, but 125, 150,000. So hopefully we'll get some better information about that part, if it actually happens. So I think that's it.
All right, any questions on this topic? Again, we covered it nicely in depth last time. At this point then, I will look for a motion to approve the FY20 budget planning assumptions.
Make your motion.
Christie?
I'll second.
Thank you, Judy. Any additional comments or discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Jeff.
All right, thank you.
Great diligence,
Nice
appreciate
work.
it.
Thank you.
Nice work.
All right, Keith, you want to come on up? For the benefit of the board and maybe anybody who's watching, there's a few items tonight when we were building the agenda, Mike and Judy and I were talking, that some items have been in consent in the past, or might be in the consent kind of an item, but we thought, you know what, that'd be a good idea to cover these things. We've got a lot of new board members. This is an example of one that I don't think I've ever seen in my tenure on the board, so I'm kind of interested in it, but there are items that may in the future be a little bit more, I don't want to say check the box, but this is an example of one that maybe wouldn't have hit the actual agenda. So, Keith?
Hi. So tonight we have the pay equity compliance report. Every 3 years, every governmental entity in the state of Minnesota has to supply a pay equity report. What the state requires you to do is to have a point methodology that you apply to every job classification that you have, and then you're supposed to send in that point value plus salary, the range of salaries from bottom to top, and also longevity planned in there. So this is where you get to kind of reminisce a statistics course if you ever took one. Because this page will make your head spin, maybe make you think of happy days, or maybe not. But so anyway, we have to supply, we go online and we supply all this data, all of our classifications, all their point values. We use the decision band method, and all our salaries and salary information, and we throw it into a program, and then it runs those numbers in terms of all these different ratios. So when you look at this sheet that's up there now, A, underpayment ratio, that one is looking strictly at not all that sophisticated of a statistical analysis, but what's the percentage of male classes below the predicted pay line versus females below. And you can see we're at 105, so we actually have more males below the pay equity line, or where they ideally would be, than women. So we pass. We passed even before we did all the other tests. We passed all the other tests as well. So we're in compliance with the state's pay equity. So what does that mean? Then we'll go, you can go to that's probably about 3 pages down, that's got the chart. Then we go, this I think is a real good illustration of what the state is doing. This isn't comparing jobs across all other jobs in the state. It's just comparing your jobs and your point evaluations with pay. And so taking you back to your stats class, of regression line, so that you can see the line there, and that's the line that would track ideal pay with the number that you gave it. Now, no number that we can give a job is going to be perfect. It's just a ballpark figure. So what the state says is if you're clustered around that, there's not real big variances one side or the other. They drew a line, but what they're really saying is there's a thick line all the way around that on both sides. And as long as you fall within that, you're good. We were better than that thick line. We're pretty close, you can see, but you can track the male jobs and the female jobs and where they are above and below that line. So we're pretty consistent with people are roughly paid what their point evaluations are all the way through. And like I say, you can track the various kind of jobs based on the salary on this side, and then on the horizontal side, the actual salaries of those jobs. Not per year, but per month. And there's calculations that they make you do to take an hourly job and make them all, apples to apples. So that's roughly it. We're required to do that every 3 years. It's, again, Minnesota's probably a leader in the country on this pay equity related to it. It's all based really initially from male-female jobs dominated. And initially, when this all came out years ago, a real primary target was manual labor male jobs against secretarial jobs, because there was a really big disparity there. But this has crunched that up because it requires you as an entity to make adjustments to your pay if there's problems, if they see inequities here in the. So, any questions?
Okay, if there's none. Nope. I hear a comment?
I was just saying, it's just intriguing information.
Yeah,
Yes.
very much so.
Very well done.
Well, and I'm pleased to see that we're so tight to the line. As you said,
That's
we're
pretty nice.
not just in compliance, but very well in compliance.
Yeah.
Good by Shakopee. All right, with that, I will look for a motion, because we need to actually approve this report?
Yes.
Okay. So I look for a motion to approve the pay equity implementation report as presented. Paul?
Second. Oh, Angela.
Angela? She's the clerk, she writes her name down anyway.
She seconded everything also.
That's right. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Keith, and I think you're staying in for the next one, too.
Sure. So before you have a tentative agreement with the Secretary of Clerical Association, and you can see this looks a lot, there's specific items that address this group in particular, but the bottom settlement is in line with all the other ones that you've really seen this year, which is 4.23 overall. This group in year one had a real keen interest in trying to level out the amount that a job would get from one step to the next. So we did a lot of working and reworking to try to make sure that in a particular classification category in this group, everybody would get the same type of increase. So that's how it actually got to 4.23 on the wages side. Then the next year, it was just step movement. So it wasn't a huge increase, but more a redistribution of the money for that group. Then health insurance, there was a slight increase in year one, and then you can see that on the chart. There was no increase in year two. And then there was this cell phone stipend for a very few number of clerical staff, but a few who may on occasion have to use their cell phone for school district business. But overall, like I say, this is the same as other groups that we've negotiated with, just a different distribution of the money. Any questions on this one?
How many is you cell phone stipend?
I think it's about 10.
Okay.
Other comments, questions?
As a comment, I would just like to once again commend Keith and his team for all the work he put in. I know this was one that was fairly involved, spent a lot of time on this, so thank you for all of the great work you did.
And obviously when it takes this much time, the group themselves put in a lot of work on this too, because we kept trying to find solutions that would fit within our parameters, but yet be able to address some of the needs that they felt they had going as a group. So
Yeah, and
good
it's-
work on both sides.
It's tough when we have those defined parameters of the 4.23 settlement that we have with our other groups. In an area with unemployment as low as it is, and the number of jobs that are available, and the rising wages, it's very competitive.
Yeah, sure.
Keith, how big is this group, if you know off the top of your head?
I think it's less than 50. It's a smaller group.
Okay.
I noticed that on the notation on the top about transfer of sick leave language, and it says that has to be because of government laws. That's still possible, though, that people can donate, or is that?
No,
not?
it isn't. Really, the government came out with some advice on that in relationship to, that the way that most of those get administered they can get administered in a way that's discriminatory in terms of who gets it, who doesn't get it, all those kind of things. So there's a lot of parameters on trying to make that work. We actually spent a fair amount of time in the teachers' negotiations trying to figure out if we could make it work. We just couldn't find that we could make it work. So what we actually ended up doing is we went out for bid for a short-term disability policy, and to close that gap of where somebody could get to, I could purchase short-term disability policy so that I could get to the long-term disability policy, so we close that gap. And we actually got enough people to sign up for that because we had a minimum requirement that we were able to actually offer it. So we kind of offered that as a gap for people who had an interest in that, and it was really, really reasonable.
I never thought about that before. I can see that could be very discriminatory.
Yeah.
All right.
You need
Any other
motions?
Sorry? Yep, I do need a motion. You wanna,
So moved.
Matt's trying to jump on. Looking for a second?
Second.
I'm gonna throw it to Christie.
We're competitive here.
Yeah, we are.
Is there a
All right.
bonus here? I don't know.
How many times
Like
have you
lightning
announced?
round.
Yeah,
It should be for the clerk.
that's right.
Through that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Keith. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 7.5, another one of these that is somewhat of a formality, but we're going to bring this forward. Mike, you're going to actually handle this. This is an annual resolution that I think we're supposed to have.
Correct, yeah, this is an annual resolution. The intent of this is, in the case the school district ever needed to make cuts, you do this on an annual basis, and then you would be in statutory compliance. So it's one of those that is typically done routinely on an annual basis. And it doesn't imply anything impending or otherwise, it's just simply kind of taking care of business so that it would never be overlooked or missed, and then you'd be out of compliance statutorily in the event that cuts were needed.
It's pretty easy. Any questions on this one?
So just to reiterate, what we heard from Jeff was, we're not planning on making any cuts. There's nothing in the budget assumption about that. This is just being in statutory compliance.
These two things don't necessarily tie together that way. This is something we would do annually. Now, what Jeff did mention, obviously, our students drive, student enrollment drives revenue, and our staffing matches that revenue. So that, I suppose you could tie that together, but they're not on tonight's agenda tied in any way. This
Okay.
would be something that typically would be done in December, actually, but with me being new and some of those things, but we'll, so you'll see it again in December of 19 for the following year.
Sounds good.
Does the school district number need to be changed?
Yes.
Before we approve it?
That'd be good.
That'd be good.
I don't know where it came from.
Last clerk.
So we'll let the motion reflect the
253.
corrected version of the resolution.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not commenting. I have no idea where that came from. No.
Never heard of 253.
That is good.
All right, I'll look for a motion to accept this particular resolution.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Christie.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you for the formality. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to new business. We're now going to talk about a couple policy items for first reading, and I think we're going to ask kind of Christie and Mike to tag team this maybe. I don't know who's going first. Christie?
Well, there were two attachments in your board book. One of them was, I should back up and say, this policy 534 for unpaid meal charges is something that was worked on previous to this new board. And from what I understand, is something that the district had somewhat unofficially implemented. But the board has never formalized the approval of this to be an official district policy. So the one that is attached that is the food service one is currently being used. And the only difference between that and the MSBA policy 534, which is the other attachment, is how somebody pays, the payment information. And that's in section 2, the last part of item A. I think this is a very important policy that we need to have in the district, just to make sure that our students are being given the proper nutrition in the district, as well as not necessarily being singled out for not having the funds to have a school lunch. So, Mike, is there anything else that you want to add to that?
No, I think you hit the key points where you want the school district policy to really align with the rules or the protocol being used by food service. So in the food service one, it does just delineate how you can pay online or by check, which is not included in the policy. really, our food service folks do a great job. Probably the one piece that's in here that I caught, probably the second round of discussions, and I think it's worth mentioning is, students, will be fed. I think in the past, sometimes it was the alternate meal. This policy has done away with that. They'll just be fed the standard school meal. There really is not a cost savings to do an alternate meal, and then all the, kind of singling out and stuff that goes along with that, the folks who worked on this policy previously and currently just thought that's not the right way to do business. So I think that's worth pointing out that, we want to value and respect each of our students and treat them well, and I think that's an opportunity to do so.
If I may add, I think there's also a cost savings by not taking that hot meal away, throwing it out because you can't reserve it.
Yeah, that should never happen.
Yeah.
We should never take food out, the meal out of the kids' hands, the hot school meal, and throw it away. And I don't believe we've done that. I just know that's happened in other places, and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, that's just wasteful.
Yeah. Yep.
And unnecessarily shaming for heaven's sake.
Yeah, and it's not the child's fault.
Yeah. Well, absolutely, and I think that's also why the whole idea of stopping a kid in the meal service line and go, oh, hold on, here we've got an alternate bag lunch for you. Well, that's shaming as well, to use the language Judy said. So this policy, just as we're giving them the standard school meal, just like the other kids in those situations, so.
You hear every once in a while about somebody going into a school and paying off the student meal debt. Do we have any kind of policy? Can people do that? Could they send a check somewhere just in case somebody wants to do that? Because you always hear that around the holidays, somebody paying off debt. And I think it would be a good thing if we actually, hey, if you want to do this, you have.
My understanding is we would be open to that, kind of that angel fund, just like any other
Sure.
donation to the district would be approved by the board and applied that way, Dave.
Yep, that angel fund exists.
It does, okay. So where would somebody send it?
Go
Just to
right
the school or?
Food service or the school.
Okay.
Wherever they wanted to go, we figure out a way to get it.
Cool, all right.
Do you know at what point a child is negative that it triggers off phone calls to parents?
5 cents.
I don't think that's consistent.
I don't think it is either, because I know we've been under them by accident.
Yeah.
I've not got a phone call.
I had my phone blowing up at 5 cents, so.
I mean, I've had it at like $9, $20. Keep in mind, I have a non-verbal child who doesn't cover this stuff. But I don't think it's consistently 5 cents.
We'll revisit. In the policy and in the protocol, it says 50 cents.
Right.
Is when they'll be notified. So we'll make sure and confirm that, but those numbers just came from the current rules or protocols, so. And there may be some systemic things where something got triggered or something got, a digit got missed or something, but yeah, we'll confirm that, but that's our understanding.
That $25 gives plenty of leeway for food to continue to be served until you get that call, even if you send a check and it gets left in the backpack for a couple days.
Not that would ever happen.
Not that's never.
Never happen.
Yeah.
No.
Yep, absolutely.
Do they still stamp the hands of the kids in the elementary school when they don't do that anymore?
My kids haven't been stamped.
We're not supposed to be stamping
I don't
now either,
believe
because
so.
that has the
I think
same.
stigma.
kind of- yeah.
Right, because I remember Noah coming home when he was in elementary school. Now, it's been a few years, but he'd come home and he'd have the stamp, and it's like, oh, it's funny.
My kids have the same thing.
You know what, I'm really confident we're not doing that, but I'll double check on that too. Yeah, no, I don't think we're doing it, same logic.
So, to be clear, we've not had 534 in the past.
Correct.
So this is a de novo policy for us.
Right.
And is that why we don't have a red line version? Because it's not red line of anything, it's a whole new
Correct,
policy.
exactly.
Yeah, okay,
And this is a mandatory policy.
right.
We need to have.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I thought I turned that off.
$5.
Donuts for the staff is
$5.
typically the,
Any other questions? Because this is a first reading, so we're not taking any action tonight. Any other questions or comments?
Looks good.
And we'll confirm some of the operations type things, for next month.
So the process is for the new board members, it's been our practice to do a first reading and then a follow-on. And that way, by the fact we're doing it on live streaming and the public can hear this and say, wait a second, I got a concern, I got a question, they can contact the district, contact one of us. It gives us time to look it over and think about it. So that's been our practice, if you will. Is that fair, Matt? To take that next meeting approach. So this is the first reading. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let's move on to some action items in new business, beginning with item 9.1. Again, another example of one that has sometimes in the past been a consent, but I think just for the benefit of the new board. Mike, you going to handle this?
Yeah, I didn't have much to say other than Bob Greeley and others, our community ed and others did the work, and it's very similar to the current agreement and a reasonable increase moving forward to run the YMCA at Central Family Center, the extended day services that are provided there by the Y. So it's a great program.
Any questions, comments? I see this every year. Okay. This one I do need a motion to approve the 1920 YMCA Central Family Center Extended Day Contract.
I'll make that motion.
I heard Angela and Christie second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. We'll move on to item 9.2, acceptance of a bid for the Sweeney Elementary Roof Project. I see Jeff's ready to come up, so take it away, Jeff.
Yeah, okay. We're going to ask the board to award the bid for the Sweeney Elementary Roof Project to McPhillips Brothers. They were the apparent low bidder. The amount of the bid is the one, as you can see there, $1,546,000. And the funding source, this was a project that was approved when the board approved the long-term facilities maintenance schedule back in July. This would have been one of the projects that we tapped as one that needed to get done in the current year. The LTFM dollar amount though was about, I think we were contemplating a partial roof replacement. We think now it probably makes sense to do the whole thing. So we had about $700,000 earmarked in that LTFM plan. You can see this is a little bit more. So there's another project at Sweeney. It was univent replacement for about $950,000 that we're also going to do. We're just going to push that one down a year, or push that off a year and get the roof done. So doing the univents, there wasn't going to be any savings doing that now along with the roof. So we think it makes sense to just get the roof done.
Just with Sweeney, are there any plans to air condition that building?
Not as far as on our long-term facilities.
I know last.
It is there.
Is the gym
Just the gym isn't? Okay, because I was going to say we were there for my son's 5th grade graduation last May. We died.
The gym?
That's probably the case with
Yeah.
most of the buildings. The gyms typically are not.
But you're probably right. If you've been in there, it's steamy. Yeah.
And Jeff, if I'm reading the map of the building correctly, basically we're doing everything but the new kindergarten rooms that were added on 4 or 5
Yeah,
years ago.
I think I sent that out, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you've got the sections that we're going to do.
Other questions? Sorry.
No,
Okay.
it's everything but that new
Yeah.
wing.
Yeah.
Other questions? The only one I have, Jeff, is just to, I think, reiterate or confirm what you said. There's no budgetary impact on the fact that we anticipated a partial, now we're doing the full, we're moving part of another project forward. or out, and so consequently, we're using dollars that were allocated for it. So it's a net
Right.
neutral
Yeah.
effect.
If you think about it, if we had to bring somebody back and do the roof again next year,
That's
we'd
possible.
stage everything and
Yeah.
that, yeah, could cost us a little bit more.
So actually, it saves us perhaps in the long
It
run.
may.
This particular year, it's a neutral effect.
My point was the Univent project, there's no correlation there, doing this instead of that.
Got it. All right. I need a motion to accept the bid and award it to McPhillips Brothers Roofing Company.
I so moved.
I heard Paul. I'm going to give a second to Judy. But I am going to wait until I'm done saying it, gives her all jumping in so fast. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. And Jeff, you want to just handle the next one too?
Yep, so we did a bid for the food service produce products. The estimated annual spend is $145,000. So this is a federal program, so we think it's important that we bid some of these items out. We haven't always done that in the past. The other thing we did, as you can see by the bid summary, this is called a best value bid. So it's not necessarily, so price was one of the criteria, but we had some other items in there as well that you can see the criteria description that I sent out. And we have been working with Bix, and we'd like to award the bid to them.
Question? I have one, Jeff, just out of curiosity, having never seen one this precise. The selection criteria, 20%, 19%, 19, 18, the weighting is really precise. Is that given to us, or is that something?
No, we decide.
So,
We decide how we want to do that. So,
okay.
Yep.
So there's obviously some method.
Typically, when you do that, you will have, price won't be the only criteria. It'll usually have the highest
Yeah.
weight.
Very precise. All right, look for a motion to approve and award the 2019 food service contract to Bix Produce.
Make that motion.
Christie?
Second.
Second, Joe. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
I know, it's like, okay, I'll tell them.
I
Guess it was my turn. It was my turn.
All right, we're at others, so I think we'll just go around the horn and see if anybody has any comments. And you know what, throw on your committee reports if you have it as we do that. I go this direction this time. Judy?
I don't have anything.
Joe?
We had the finance committee before the session today. We covered pretty much everything here in this session as we did in there. I just wanted to point out Jeff is doing a very good job. I met with him for 2.5 hours on Thursday, and a couple of accountants in a room. That's you should all be glad you were
Scary
not
thing.
there.
Did you have CFAC as well?
Yes,
Did you want to go?
and Jeff and I covered a little bit of that during the session too. It was good to meet everybody who's on that committee also. And we just went over pretty much again what we covered in this session and the previous work session. So nothing new, nothing out of the ordinary.
Next time you guys want to tackle my income tax.
I need mine first.
All right, moving along. Christie?
I don't have any committee reports, but I just want to give a shout out to the middle school students, staff, administration for the excellent performance of Susical Jr. over the weekend. I went Sunday afternoon and was thinking that there may not be that many people there, but it was packed. It was full.
That's true.
So kudos to the staff. The kids were, I mean, it was just, wow, I left with that impression. It was extremely well done. It's great to see the community members, parents, number of parents that were involved in either set creation or choreographing the play. It was just all around very well done. So.
Dave?
Last week, that ACT day got canceled, which is a really large problem, because you can't use the books that you had. You have to get rid of all them and get them back and resort it all, so it's a lot of work. Or Sarah Jordan's doing most of the heavy lifting. On that, the makeup date for that will be March 12th. So that day will function just like it was supposed to on February 20th. So gives us a little extra time to prepare, and it created some, actually there was, because we have accommodated testing as well, that time frame doesn't change, you have a window. So we had 5 rooms of kids here today, okay? And then, just one other thing, not that we want to do this, but we're in looking ahead, and we don't know what's necessarily going to come out of the facility work that we are going to talk about, I think, at the retreat, that we did do some training on the new Guide K-12 product, so we're getting a little bit prepped if we want to start looking at that kind of work, so.
And that's all juniors who take the test, is that right?
Correct, and so our 9th, 10th, and 12th graders actually. I guess there were some kids that weren't happy because that was going to be an off day and then turned into an e-learning day. So kids that thought they weren't going to have something then had something, so.
We're trying to do those connected learning days on the most interesting and unusual days, just to fully vet it.
What could possibly go wrong? We're going to do truck test.
I don't know what we have next, but yeah.
Can it get more creative?
Ashley?
I've been working on a 3-year communications plan. So the Citizens Communications Advisory Committee will meet March 11th, and that group will tackle the plan that I've been putting together, so we can get the group's input on some things that are in the plan and just get their thoughts and see if they have any additions to make
Great.
before it's finalized.
Jeff?
Makeup good? Good as well.
Councilman Contreras? Good. Skip our audience for the moment. Sarah?
I'm good, thank you.
Paul?
Received a few phone calls about the canceling school Tuesday night in advance, most of which were very complimentary to let parents with the younger ones try and figure out what to do with the kids when they're going to be at work still.
To me, it's to borrow a baseball analogy, sometime, and not that the ball can't move on the way to the plate, but that was a fastball in the middle of the strike zone.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the middle of a winter storm warning. The predicted snowfall, I think, was going to be 7.7 inches at that time we made the call, between 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. And so that doesn't mean that it couldn't have changed at 6 in the morning, but it really did. So
Yeah, no.
But thank you, Paul. I appreciate you sharing that.
And I appreciated it because I really did. I was not looking forward to getting the phone call when I was in 2-hour time change. You know, so if you were going to make the call at 5 a.m., it would have been 3. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
It's all about you. Matt?
Nothing.
I attended the Southwest Metro Board meeting last Tuesday. So that was a charity meeting in a room with 11 member districts, all wondering who's going to close first. And we were first, by the way, other than Minneapolis, St. Paul, so nice job. Also, we talked a little bit about, I don't know if you guys are aware, but Southwest Metro has a few locations within this building. And one of the locations down there had a water leak with the polar vortex that we had. So they actually shut down for an entire week that programming. Thankfully, it didn't affect my child. But they had to remove about 2.5 feet of sheetrock. Keep in mind, they just sheetrocked this at the start of the year because this is a new location for them. So thankfully, everything's under insurance with the people that we rent from. So we got to see some pictures, but yeah, it was quite a bit of a mess.
Which program was it?
It was I believe the level 4 setting.
Okay.
It's too bad.
Yeah, and it was also Career and Tech Ed Week last week. And we had some future farmers of America come in and talk to us, and they are such brilliant kids. I mean, this one kid is he's made $13,000 by teaching classes about chickens and
Wow,
selling
that's awesome.
eggs and all this stuff. And he's on an IEP plan. You would never have guessed. The kid's so smart.
Go to work for Purdue.
Yeah, he lives in Jordan. He goes to school in
Wow,
Jordan.
that's great.
Yeah. Cool. He loves chickens.
Get a big one
Apparently,
going
you
between
can't be a
Purdue and
chicken. Apparently, you can't be a chicken farmer if you have pet chickens. That's one thing. In case I decide to go.
What do they say, never name something, you're gonna ultimately. All right, I'll leave you for last, Mike. I don't have anything to add other than I enjoy reading in the paper some of the good things that are happening, and perhaps the one that my future gig is, but the wrestlers and their success, the swimmers was just, I think, posted as early as today. We had our students named for the, I'm not going to get it right, but the AAA and the XL awards, the arts, academics, and athletics. So lots of good things happening, and kids are being recognized for their success. And I think we'll probably be doing some of that here, but it's great stuff. Good to see. Mike?
I was just gonna follow up what Christy said. I thought Seussical Jr. Was a fantastic musical. It was part of, my wife Carol and I, it was our Friday night, part of our date night. That was the main part, and it was a great show.
Dinner and a show?
Dinner and a show, yeah. So we had a great time. I thought the kids were just fantastic, and you're right, the set and the performance, it was a great show. Glad I was able to see it.
All right, we move to item number 12, recognition of visitors to the board meeting, in case we have anyone who'd like to speak.
No.
Sorry, you can't even say that.
In a word.
I didn't hear that. You can't speak.
Sign it.
All right, upcoming meetings. We had Finance Committee meeting tonight. Facilities is meeting on Wednesday. Personnel's coming up. Our next work session's on March 11th. We have a retreat on the 16th. We're starting to work on that agenda, I think. Again, Finance Committee, business meeting, et cetera. And then, Sarah, there's no changes in the attachments for the dates and the calendar, right?
Correct.
That's just for our
No,
benefit.
just reference.
Anyone who wants to see it.
Right.
All right. With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion?
Paul, Christie, second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I was gonna say that's one of the